class, and welcome to our next edition of Mr. VIannelli's music class. Today we're going to continue our lesson about reading the staff, and we're going to specifically look at the symbols that go on the staff, and very specifically what we like to call a clef. A clef is something that goes before all the notes and all the time signature and all the key signature. It's the first thing that we see on the staff, and the clef is going to tell us what notes the lines and spaces actually mean. So let's continue on. So as I scroll down here, we're going to look at what we did the last class, and we talked about that the staff does have lines and spaces, right? It has 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the notes go on those 5 lines and 4 spaces. We did also talk about that notes could go above the staff and below the staff, and those we'll talk about at a different day. But for today, we're just going to look at the notes that live on the staff, and specifically in one of the clefs. And here we are, talking about clefs. Here's how you spell it. The 2 clefs that we're going to look at this week are the treble clef and the bass clef. Today, we're just going to concentrate on the treble clef. And the treble clef is also named the G clef. The treble clef takes care of, or tells you, the higher notes in the musical register, rather than the bass clef, which tells you the lower notes. So, as far as that's concerned, the people who have the treble clef, the instruments are like the flute, the clarinet, the saxophone, the trumpet, and those people who read in the bass clef, who read the lower notes, are more of the tuba, the trombone. All right, so let's move on and start looking at the treble clef and the lines and spaces on that clef. Before I continue, I want to remind you guys about a musical alphabet, that the musical alphabet is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters long. So that matters for the clefs because the clefs, as the alphabet, also go in alphabetical order. So here we are with our example of a treble clef and the staff. So we have our 5 lines and 4 spaces. And then on the 5 lines and 4 spaces, we have our treble clef. So let's continue on. So first we're going to look at the lines on the treble clef. A way people like to memorize, and that's a good way to do this, is to memorize what the lines are E, G, B, D, and F. What people like to think of to remember these things are the phrase every good boy does fine. Some other people in my class like to say every good boy deserves fudge. So there's plenty of different ways that you can memorize or think of what's called a mnemonic device, which is a word that starts with each of these letters in a phrase to help you remember the lines and the spaces. So one thing I'm going to ask you to do on your assignment that's attached to this video is you're going to have to tell me a mnemonic device that you can use to remember the lines on the treble clef. Now in between the lines we have the spaces. So we have our line notes, every good boy does fine, or E, G, B, D, F, and then we have our notes on the spaces over here. The notes in the spaces are a little bit easier to memorize because the first one is F, second space note is A, third space note is C, and the fourth space note is E. So I say it's a little bit easier to memorize because it simply spells out the word bass. All right? So another thing for you guys to realize is that the staff and the notes on the staff go in the musical alphabet order. So if this one here is an E, the next one up is going to be F on the next space. If the next line is G, the next space up will be, you guessed it, A. Then the next line is B, the space in between is C, the next line would be D, the space in between would be E, and then at the very top line we have F. So you see it goes in alphabetical order, or musical alphabetical order, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. So for homework, you have a sheet attached to this assignment. please read the assignment and do the homework. And I will see you next time so we can go over the notes in the base clef, which is down here. We'll talk about that next time. Thank you.